From the Chicago Sun-Times newsroom, I'm Natasha Korecki, and this is Off Message, where we go beyond the political talking points to the heart of the issues in the city and beyond. Joining me today, columnist Neil Steinberg, editorial writer Kate Grossman, and columnist Mark Brown. This week, the Illinois House finally passed same-sex marriage legislation, which Pat Quinn says he'll sign. Well, both of you were in Springfield at the time, and what was it like in the gallery at that point, the anticipation? Did people think it was a done deal, or what was the feeling?
It was, Greg Harris, who sponsored it, has always said, he wouldn't call it for a vote unless he had the vote. So in my thinking, this is going to happen, but I mean, that definitely wasn't the mood in the gallery, and people were nervous, and as it got closer and, Greg Harris makes the final speech and Madigan's, you kind of know it's coming, and people were definitely sitting on the edge of their seats. And, I had sort of been following one couple, and I kind of ran over there to see their first reaction. And, one woman just cried, she put her head down, just this sort of rush of relief. I mean, people did not feel like this was definitely going to happen. And so it was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, in the spring, there are all these people down there, and they thought it was going to happen. And they really, they'd been misled a little, I think. Right. And this time, there just was not that air in the room, although some of us had been told, hey, it's going to happen. And then there was this point where a Republican legislator is asking Greg Harris about some questions about an amendment that they put on at the last minute, and he says, well, could we think about this overnight? And Harris says, well, I think I could answer your questions right now. And he says, does that mean that we're going to vote on it today? And Harris just nodded, and it was it was electric, I thought, because you could see, it was.
You have to remember what's at stake for people. For gays and lesbians, it's not a political issue. You're in a society that questions your personhood so much that your ability to fall in love and have a relationship is sort of delegated to this second-class civil union sort of apartheid. And suddenly society says, on second thought, come on in. That's a huge thing for people. I think that we should never lose sight of that.
Well, this woman who cried, Danielle Cook, I went to her afterwards, because during the floor debate, there's the people who are opposed, said it was a pretty civil debate, but there were some really pretty ugly things said.
If you're in the same room.
And you're sitting there, and this is a woman who's an assistant principal, like just a regular woman. And I said to her afterwards, I said, what's it like to sit here and hear that? And she's been around a long time, and she said, it's tough to hear. And she said, I try to be respectful of other people's opinion, but she said it's hard.
That's why it's not going to be reversed, because it's the gays and lesbians not being allowed to wed was never fact-based. Okay, they don't make worse spouses, worse parents. Okay, so there's no, they're not going to go and take the vote away from women. Right. It turned out that women could vote okay. Okay, and it's going to be the same thing in this situation. There's going to be no negative consequences. The only negative consequences are people who go crazy if they see a gay couple, and that's, that's not the society we're going toward anymore.
Well, with that, let's close up with the notable quotes of the week. We like to close up with those, and there's so many this week. And I'll start with mine. Representative Dwight Kay, his quote on the House floor over the same-sex marriage debate: "This nation was built on the scriptures, then came the Constitution." And then he paused and said, "Is that right? I think it is." And
I think he does believe that. I don't know. I also have a quote from that debate. Representative David Harris, not to be confused with Greg Harris, right, a Republican from Arlington Heights. He decided to quote Fiddler on the Roof and Tevye as to explain his vote against it. And he said, tradition. And I thought he was going to get up and, sing a song.
Mine is a little more sentimental. So this couple that I had been following, Danielle, who I mentioned before, her partner is a woman named Susie Hutton, and she said, she was a very quiet woman, she just said, this is simply about living our lives honestly. And I thought that was a pretty profound way to sort of wrap up everything that had just happened.
The news here in Chicago is being dwarfed by the news up in Toronto, which I'm having true journalism envy. And the mayor there, Rob Ford, who, if you haven't seen him, is sort of like a heavier, less sophisticated version of Chris Farley.
There's you there!
was caught on video with drug dealers smoking crack cocaine, and he said, yes, that was me smoking crack cocaine, but he had a defense, and the defense was that he was in a, quote, drunken stupor, unquote.
We haven't even heard that one here in Chicago. With that, thank you to our guests, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you